Hi, I'm Sophie Hannah.
Hi, I'm Anissa.
Hi, I'm Fairyqueen Tatiana.
Hiya, I'm Monah, and welcome to episode 56 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from pop culture to current affairs and everything in between. So, as I'm sure you are all aware, after 2 days of making disparaging comments about Meghan Markle and the claims that she made in her interview with Oprah, Piers Morgan stormed off ITV's Good Morning Britain during an on-air clash with his presenter Alex Beresford. Now, standing by his claims and refusing to apologise, Piers has resigned from the show and put out a tweet that ended with, "Thanks for all the love and hate, I'm going to stay with my opinions." Some people feel that Piers has been denied his freedom of speech, as he has many people who share his views. So the question is, what is the true meaning of freedom of speech? What is the dangers of silencing people who have conflicting ideas? Ladies, let's get into it because I am bubbling.
Yes, I'll just start off. I think freedom of speech is a very interesting thing. It's a right within law, but there are restrictions to it. So your freedom of speech should not restrict other people's humanity. It shouldn't incite any crime or just heinous acts. So I think a lot of us, or society as a whole, confuses freedom of speech with hate speech. Just because you have an opinion about something doesn't mean that you should always voice it out. And I think in the case of Piers Morgan, his opinions around Meghan Markle is really rooted within his emotions from when she ghosted him, in his own words. So anything that she does, says, or, says in the media, he will always look at it as very negative. So I think he's never going to have an opinion that is in her favor or kind towards her. So I think his opinion in this case, just because it's his opinion, he shouldn't always share it, because he does say some harmful things and dismissive of her words, which I don't think it's very kind. But unfortunately, I think in the society that we live in today, if we do silence the words of people who have these opinions that are not always, I would say, kind to others or hurtful, you're going to have people united over a particular opinion. So you have people protesting like at Capitol Hill, where people were all united over a fact that wasn't really a fact, that, President Trump had lost the election, and they all stormed and, destroyed the whole building. And unfortunately, a couple of people died. So silencing the opinions of people can cause bigger issues. And I think that's also dangerous. But I also think that whether you say something good or bad, people are always going to be, or there will be some people who are going to view it as hateful, or they're going to be offended by it. So we can't control how people are going to react to what we say, but we have to be mindful and allow other people to be humans and not criticize them in a way that's going to, remove them from their humanities or their rights to express themselves. So we have to be very mindful of what we say.
Yeah, I agree, Tatiana. Do you want to?
I'll just say one thing. I was going to say a fact that isn't a fact is a lie, Tatiana. It was just a straight lie. Lie, lie, lie.
I was being careful.
Well, I agree, Tatiana, but I'm like on such a fine line about this, and it reminds me of a topic that we spoke about maybe a couple of months ago about regarding to like how far should people take it in comedy, because it's about this whole limiting expression and speech, and that's where the energy I'm kind of sitting with it. I do believe people should have freedom of speech, and with that belief, I'm fully aware that some things that people may say or some opinions that people may hold, I'm going to be totally against it. But it's so kind of difficult to police the whole freedom of speech thing, because everybody should, I guess, be able to say what they're going to say as long as it doesn't incite harm to somebody else. However, I could say, like, Monah could say to me her favorite color is blue, and I might find that harmful for whatever reason. That's an extreme example, but I may find that harmful for whatever reason, but other people may not think that's harmful. So then it all becomes subjective of what's offensive, what's really harmful, X, Y, Z. And so you just end up in this big, like, cluster ball of mess. And so it's like, okay, maybe we should just say everyone has freedom of speech. If somebody says something too crazy, then we have to kind of hold them accountable, but then that's kind of going back on them being able to say what they want to say. So I feel like this whole concept of freedom of speech is a whole contradictory term in the way that we have it within society, because I think we want people to be able to say what they want to say as long as it doesn't cause offense to us. And so the whole thing, I think, is flawed in in the way that it's set up. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think it is really tricky, and I think that in the UK that we have really cheapened the term freedom of speech, because the idea of allowing people to be able to voice their opinions we've used for people can just say really mean things, rude things, inappropriate things, but it's my right to say it. And I feel like that is diametrically in opposition to what freedom of speech is. So when I was looking at freedom of speech, I started seeing about people in China, people in the Philippines, people in Myanmar who were talking about how people are getting killed, how journalists are disappearing, how they're not allowed to have print in the press things that are going on because it's so controlled. For me, that is freedom of speech. They're like, we have a right to say we are not happy with what the government is doing. We have a right to be able to share our opinion without being killed, without being kidnapped. And this is happening in a lot of places in the world. And they're saying freedom of speech is a right. People should be able to say, you know, things aren't going correctly. Whereas in the UK, and in the West, it seems, in America too, it means that I am someone from the KKK and I can say that, you know, all people of any ethnic origin should go back to where they come from and they're not doing anything for our society and I want to kill them. I should be allowed to say it because it's freedom. I'm just like, that is very different to what freedom of speech should be. You're not using what you're saying to talk about prejudice or injustice. You're just using this to air your very personal racist opinions. And I don't think that freedom of speech is now what we're currently trying to say it is in the UK.
Yeah.
I feel that going back to the example about Piers Morgan and him storming off, I watched that and I was just watching Alice like, read him, sis, because he got red like he was on RuPaul Drag Race, and I was here for it.
Wow.
Because he can dish it out and he can't take it, and like Tatiana cannot take it. When he stormed off, I was like, Babu, I was so happy. Like Tatiana said, a lot of his responses comes from emotion. Like if you've watched the whole thing from the beginning, he has been after Meghan like a dog with a bone. You're sour. She ghosted you in your own words and you're sour. You, as a reporter, as a journalist, someone who has a platform, you need to be able to distance yourself from your emotions and your actual job, what you should be doing. He has been gunning for this woman left, right and centre. There's been many a times that he has poked fun at Alex and Alex has left. Now, I know it's not to the same degree, but he never resigned. He dealt with the music and did what he had to do. Now, I feel like with Piers, we are in this form of like cancel culture, because I know that he doesn't have the best fan base, which he does have a fan base, but he doesn't have the best fan base. And I've seen people jump on the bandwagon as and when it suits them. So it's like, I don't really check for Piers Morgan, but there has been times where he said things and he's been on the money, he's been relevant, and people are like, yeah, I'm all here for Piers. Usually he doesn't talk correctly, but today I'm here for him, and they celebrate him. And then when he says something that people don't want to hear, he's cancelled. So like you said, Anissa, it's very subjective as to what you want to hear and what you shouldn't hear. That's not what freedom of speech should be about. It should be about being able to say what it is that you feel passionate about, but at the same time, you cannot be dragging people through the dirt. In terms of Piers, I think it's been a long time coming that he's been knocked off his pedestal, because although he has people who share the same views as him, he has to understand he has very strong views, he has a platform, he has an influence. It is very dangerous if some of the things that he is saying, impressionable people take it on board and run with the same energy that he has, because he's got very big DICK energy, and when it's reciprocated, he can't take it. So freedom of speech, if you're able to dish it, you better be able to take it. You can clearly tell from the way that I'm moving.
No, it's just the spelling that I love. It's like a kid on the beat. Like, I love it up in here, honey. Spell me another word.
You know, there's been loads of times that I've spelt and I haven't spelt it right. There was a time I said to someone, "You're dumb." DUM. So I actually need to stop the spelling. But
no, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
my thing is,
Piers
who hasn't been in?
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, who hasn't been involved with a guy at some point that got upset because you didn't want nothing to do with them? I feel like that's just the black woman story. I'm standing with you, Megan. What guy hasn't at some point... Anissa, I know you're laughing because you've done it. Anissa, you're
I know you have.
I know you have, Anissa.
I'm laughing because you are telling a comical story.
No, Anissa, aren't you like the drop down dance queen, like Megan with the strong knees out here? Don't tell me there hasn't been some guy.
Very strong knees, that's for sure. However,
don't tell me there hasn't been.
You, Sophie. I'm gonna let you finish your point, Sophie, because I'm listening actively. That's what I was laughing about.
I was saying. Who hasn't dated a guy? No, I'm saying she went on a date with him. It sounded like it was a friend date, Megan. I'm not trying to put words in her mouth or Pierce's. They went out, they had a drink. Some guys get very upset when things don't go their way, and then they turn into your worst enemy. I dated a guy like that. I broke up with him after 6 weeks as a teenager, and he made my life hell. And I was just like, damn, this is what I thought in the movies. They always take the breakup really well. No. There are some guys out here who get very emotional, and Pierce is just an example of a man that can't take rejection.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so glad that Alex put him in check, because it was like everyone was dancing all around the houses, but not getting to the root of the problem. Shut up, defending the queen like she's your grandma. Shut up. Because we all know what the problem is. You are sour. You're not taking a political stance. You're not being fair. Shut up.
Yeah, it's not freedom of speech. It's just being a hater.
100%.
That's honestly what it is. But what do you guys think about now what's happening to Sharon Osbourne? Because obviously she's now spoken out in defense of Piers, and now like all the skeletons came out of the closet for Sharon, and obviously the way she handled herself on her own talk show, like a lot is going on, and now the show is currently like suspended. And you know, some people may just say like, well, she was just saying her opinion and defending her friend, and others may not take it that way. Like, what are you lot's thoughts on the whole Sharon sitch?
I think that's a difficult one, because Piers Morgan, he is not just someone who's sharing his opinion on a program. He's an opinion leader. So his voice has got a lot of power, like Mona already said. And I think what Sharon was trying to do was to defend her friend, but she didn't really take into account what he was saying and wasn't willing to listen.
Yes.
I think Cheryl, who was speaking to Sharon on the program, she's very calm. And as Black women, when we're dealing with white fragility, we have to be very careful. Because we don't want to have the stereotype that we are angry Black women. So I think I really commend for how she spoke to her, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle that conversation. However, Sharon felt that she was blindsided, that NBC or the company didn't inform her. So I think there's a lot of things going backstage. But unfortunately, her trying to defend her friend has kind of put her in this pigeonhole of you're also a racist. And things about her children have come out. They've said things about Mexicans in the US. So there's a lot of, I think, problems with defending someone who is saying things that are considered racist. So if you're going to defend a friend, I think just say, you know, they are my friend, and I will have a conversation with them privately. But don't defend someone when they have been caught doing something on live TV that is quite racist in nature. So you have to be... Your friendship shouldn't be the conversation in this case. You should just say, as his friend, I defend him because I love him, but I don't defend what he said. And I think she could have stopped there. But
I think she agrees, Tatiana. That's why she didn't have an issue with what he said.
Yeah, but she just took it personally afterwards. She took it personally afterwards. She was saying like she felt trapped or she was in a cage.
Oh my God, sorry.
Like, I watched the program because I was very interested to see what was going on, but she was very offended, and it became more about her opposed to her defending her friend. So she was defending her friend first, and then it became about her.
Sharon was just the epitome of white fragility. The epitome. If you'd have put 100%. White fragility, you'd have seen Sharon like, that's what you would have seen.
Sophie,
because people were calling her Sharon Karen Osbourne after that. And I'm just like, I don't want to throw the name Karen out here willy-nilly, but I'm sorry, you telling a Black woman you're not allowed to cry. I should be the one who's crying. Because I'm just thinking, excuse me? And look, you said it was difficult, Tatiana. I don't think it was difficult. I feel like Sharon just overstepped the mark. I think that I'm not saying that she's racist, because I think that this is the issue that we have in our current society. People are more offended by being called racist than actually being racist. Like, oh, I'm a racist.
Yeah.
Oh my days, I'm gonna cry. I'm so upset. I've been called a racist. But my thing is, Sharon just doesn't even understand what racism is. Because Cheryl is talking to her and she says to her, some of the things that he said is racist. She went, what has he said he's racist? What has he said? Educate me. And my thing is, someone doesn't need to say the N word for them to be racist. Someone
Yeah.
doesn't need to say you black so-and-so for someone to be racist. The vitriol that he is pushing out, what the media is doing when it's someone like Kate in the Kate in comparison, and she's not getting the same sort of energy, and you're like, what's different? Why are we talking about her exotic DNA, or she's from the streets of Compton, or what is that? And I think this whole thing about racism is like, if it's not overt, if I'm not beating you up and calling you some sort of racial slur, it's not racism. I'm like, Sharon, you do need to educate yourself, but it's not Cheryl's job to do that for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because at the end of the day, her defending Piers, let's unpack it and get to the root of the problem. What Piers was trying to defend is that the senior member of the royal family saying worrying about how dark the skin of the baby would be. I don't care how they worded that question. That question is racist. It would only come from a racist. Why would you care about the colour of somebody's skin if you weren't racist? At the end of the day, Meghan is very, very light. Now, I know you can get the throwbacks, but Meghan is very, very fair. I'm pretty sure we've seen the baby. The babies could pass for white. The baby has more white DNA.
Yes, like more than could. Yes.
Exactly. The baby passes as white, 100%. It doesn't take a rocket scientist for somebody to sit down and ask that question. How rude and insensitive is that? So for Piers to sit there and try to defend to Alex, who is mixed race, who said himself that he has been asked a question that somebody said, do you wonder about how dark your child is going to be? Why would I wonder about the shade of my child? What connotation are you trying to push out there? The darker my child is, what does that mean? Does that bring shame upon the royal family? What does that mean? And the fact that Sharon is trying to defend that and saying that, oh, you know, he's not racist. Sharon, shut up. It's so racist. Why are you trying to defend it? I would much rather they said it with their chest and said, do you know what, yeah? Coming from my perspective, I feel that asking that type of question, it didn't seem racist. How you're going to be an ally and get a pat on the back is by closing your mouth and opening your ears. You cannot tell a community that you're not involved in what is and isn't racist. It's not your place. So if you wanted to defend your friend, you should have put him in check. That's what you should have done. And to now play victim and be like, oh, you know, I feel trapped, blah, blah, blah. I feel trapped. How about that? I feel trapped about what you said, about you defending your friend. But I don't seem to have the quote unquote fit the stereotype of being allowed to be a victim. And there is the problem. She's the problem. Piers is the problem.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't have an issue with somebody defending their friend. Like,
yeah, me either. That is not the issue.
That's a given. Like, if your friend, as a given, you're gonna have their back. But there's a way to do it. Like, my friend might do some crazy things, and I'm just gonna say, look, that's my friend. So, I mean, I'm not gonna let you talk crazy about them. But I don't specifically agree with what they've done. But that's my friend. Like, I'm just gonna keep that as a blanket. However, the way she was going, let me know that she had no issue with it. So it wasn't, and I think she's using the friend, Piers being her friend, as a scapegoat, because I think whether Piers was her friend or not, she didn't see an issue with that comment or with what was going on. But she was using the idea of her and Piers being friends as a scapegoat. That was just my personal thing. And I didn't watch the actual back and forth with her and Cheryl because I quite like Cheryl and I just didn't want to see her upset and things like that. So I just didn't want to like engage myself in that. But what I saw afterwards, like out of a lot of the woodworks, was people coming, like former co-hosts on that show coming back and saying that Sharon has said some racially charged things to them. And so that made sense to me why she wouldn't see this as an issue if she's spewing the same kind of rhetoric. Do you know what I mean? And the line of that is, okay, well, is she allowed to say these things? I guess in the name of freedom of speech. But then it's like, well, why would you express those things? Because what is it, like, as Sophie was talking about, you know, freedom of speech maybe being more of a political thing, or if you're a journalist and you're speaking about the politics, why does commenting on someone's skin color, what does that have to do with freedom of speech? Like, that's what's confusing for me. So that's why I got lost in translation with the whole Sharon thing.
Because I guess, how then do we have these constructive, controversial questions Because I feel like for some people, there might be I think a lot can be had by somebody coming to sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to give you a real story. I used to work in a place where I used to have to work with a lot of volunteers. And one of the volunteers, he was very young. He came from a very, very rural area of the United Kingdom. And he had said he was white, and he said he didn't believe that black people and white people should get together because further down the line, they're going to have some sort of degenerate disease. Now, he said this around a bunch of black people. And what some black people can be like, we all just looked at each other just like,
what is going on?
Did he really just say that? This is what he said. And I was just like, I'm sorry, what was that based on? And he was just like, well, he grew up in a very rural area, and he was just like, that his family were farmers, and his granddad told him the black bees and like the yellow bees, when they mate, down the line there's going to be like degenerate if they don't stick to their own. And he was like, it's the same with the races. That's what his granddad told him. And we were all just there just like, what? Very offended.
Boy, there's Google. Please get it together.
They didn't have any. They didn't have internet. His apparent. Anyway, that's another thing. They didn't have any internet, so you couldn't check these random facts. Now, all the people had spent time with him. He was a very lovely boy, very lovely. We sat down, and there were black people there, a few white people, and we just had a conversation with him. We're like, that's not true. That's not proven. This and that. One person was there, was mixed race, and was like, this is not the case. Blah blah blah. And afterwards, he started hanging out with these people, now spending time with them outside of the work that we were doing, because we were able to sit in an environment where someone said something and he was free to say it, but we were able to have the conversation because it came from a place of, he wasn't coming from a place of malice. He genuinely thought this was the truth. And people there had spent enough time with him to be like, do you know what? His intentions are generally good. He's been very sheltered. Yeah. We're going to talk to him about that. And I just feel like that is missing when we're talking about freedom of speech. Like people actually trying to talk together, trying to understand. Yeah. Like, actually, is that correct? Do we need to look at that a bit? And I feel freedom of speech now is that people don't want to discuss it. They just want to throw out what their comment is and then just be like, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean,
go on.
I think the example that you gave is actually a very, very good one, because I think silencing controversial opinions is actually very damaging, because people need to be exposed and people need to be able to see other people's opinion. I very much agree. I think engaging in conversations that are a bit challenging and are a bit difficult, it's good to expand your mental capacity. What you said, Sophie, is bang on the money. It's about intention. The example of the boy that you gave, he must have been sheltered. It came from his family. He obviously trusts him, not able to like research whatever it is that he wanted to say. When you were telling your story, I was thinking, talking about degenerate diseases, let's talk about blue blood and how they're all inbred, because that's a disease right there. But I'll leave that for another day. Leave that for another day.
Yes, clutch my
we all know that mixing DNA makes for stronger people. We know that, but let's leave that science for another day. But yeah, it's about the intention.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Go on, Tatiana.
No, I wasn't going to go there, but I was going to say alongside with the right of freedom of expression is also the responsibility of listening. And I think that's an art that a lot of people and skill that people don't have. People are so focused on saying what they need to say, but they're not listening to other people. And as a society, we should be able to, in the 21st century, to listen to each other so we can kind of come to a conclusion and learn from each other. But unfortunately, people just want to say things, but don't want to listen. So it's like having a conversation with a wall or something. So it's very one-sided, this freedom of speech.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you, Tatiana, about listening is key. And just listening to Sophie's example just like put all the bulbs in my mind, because I remember last year the conversation about sexual coercion came up, and everyone was like, it was a hot topic at that moment last year, whatever. And I had some very, very open conversations with a lot of my male friends who didn't understand coercion. And so they were saying some strong things, and you know, like off the rip, you want to be offended because you're thinking like, what the hell are you actually saying, bro? Like that's what like was going in mind. That I had to just sit there and listen, and then give them the space to say it and open to say whatever it is they say, and then educate them from whatever it is that they said, and be like, okay, like, no, this is coercion if you do what? If you do X, Y, and Z, and this is how someone's feel, and if you just because you think it's this, just blah, like it was a whole thing. And if I was I guess maybe if I had got offended that moment and defensive and didn't allow my friends and certain people to say what they were going to say, like they would have a different perspective on sexual coercion and what that is. And they may still be quite defensive of that, or even continue to, not that they were, but they may continue to, if they saw other men doing it, they may not pull them up on it because they didn't understand it. But that's why you have to allow people sometimes to say their opinions, even if it's controversial, even if it's offensive, because you've got to take that opportunity to educate them. And no, it's not our job to educate people. However, sometimes when you are with people that either you love or you know their intentions are good, it makes for a better world if you just tell them what the right thing is and they can see that. And then that may open the dialogue for bigger conversations. So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't want to limit freedom of speech, because I feel like having those challenging conversations sometimes is important, like so that we can change narratives, change opinions. But I am very conscious that that could still cause a lot of offence and harm.
Yeah. So I think Sophie, go on.
No, go ahead, Tatiana.
No, just to answer your question, Sophie, when people are coming with controversial things, I think we should use that sentence that Monah was saying, like, let's unpack that. So let's explore what you said and then look at why you think this way. Because when people explain themselves, you have a better understanding of whether the intention is good, bad, or just malice. So I think we need to explore, when people do use their freedom of speech, what do you mean by what you say? And then move from there.
I think we've made some very, very interesting points. Thank you for listening and watching to Ethnically Speaking. Let's keep the conversation going. What are your thoughts on freedom of speech? Do you feel that controversial opinions should be silenced? Let us know in the comments down below. For a summary of everything we've spoken about today, head over to the unitedmelaningroup.com/ESO56. The link is in the description below.
If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We'll be back on Wednesday where we'll be talking about plastic surgery. Until then, wear your masks, wash your hands, keep your distance, and most of all, stay safe.